hold up your sights and all. Where do you start? Where do we start? It's been a minute. Hot temperatures, snakes, and just all the hoo-ha that's going on. Probably it's not really motivating again. It's not one of those videos. We're going to talk about the 303, but just thought we would touch on how's all the rule changes, eh? I'm not sure what to take of it. It is what it is. It was always going to be inevitable. I've kept pretty quiet about the whole thermal thing to a degree. Yeah, I whinge about it a lot prior to it when it was illegal. Now that it's a legal thing, it's more of like a kick in the guts in regards to having any decency or respect for the hunt of the deer. I personally thought that the rules were perfect as they were in regards to if you're on private property and you want to bloody kill the deer and you want to do it with the thermals, do it. And that's basically what it's for. It's a pest management tool. But here we are, here we have it now with the regulations regarding game and hunting game, particularly on public land too. As I say, the thermal was always going to be inevitable because technology is what it is. I was kind of getting a little spewing on the fact that some guys would argue that the old dude with the string and arrow got pretty pissed off when someone brought around the bloody compound bow. And then the compound bow dudes got pretty spewing when they started bringing out bloody lever action rifles. So on and so forth. So then you got guys with open sights whinging about guys with scopes. Guys with 2 power scopes whinging about these guys with these new 20 power scopes. Then just long range, like one thing after another. Now it's the evolution of just hunting and life in general. Well, it's actually the evolution of life, and hunting's caught up in that. And with that all comes technology. Very tech world out there right now. Everyone's pretty lazy per se. You want your watch to tell you how many steps. You want your watch to tell you where you are. You want your watch to take bloody messages and call people and all that jazz now. Every app under the sun. Your rangefinder goes through your bloody app straight to your scope. Shit like that. So what does it matter regarding the bloody thermals? Well, my gripe on it is the deer now no longer have that fair chase bracket to be deer in. What I mean by that is, if you've got enough money and a pair of killing deer is worth that much to you, there should not be a real reason why you could not get a stag in a weekend. One weekend, mature stag. It's the deer have a knack of being able to hide. They have a knack of being able to sneak around the bush, and they have a tendency to just get the fuck out of there pretty quick when they sense some sort of danger. There's all these other noises and animals walking around the bush, but a deer doesn't just hear a kangaroo poking along the track and then run to all buggery. They're just that tuned in just to a predator sneaking up on them, which somebody's got to know this, but there's a different vibe out there if you're just a grazer or if you're a predator. The demeanour, particularly of the animal, or in our case the person's. What I typically find is if I'm walking around the bush with a rifle, any gun, and I'm mentally thinking, where are you, bugger? I want to kill you, where are you? I'm sending off these vibes. And what do you think these deer, they call it a sixth sense. What do you think that is? That's feeling the vibe. So here they are, they're happy as Larry, chill as hell, eating grass, having a browse on the blackberries. And then all of a sudden, you can, if you've seen them without them seeing you, and they have no awareness of you being there, very soon they'll just they just switch on something not right, something watching me. Instinct from the tiger killing them. So then they start looking around, ears radar, and just listening for that little leaf that you step on, or the rattle of a bolt, anything like that. Then all of a sudden, bang, there he is. Or there's the danger. They might then stand there for 20 minutes. They might try and provoke you with a few head movements. They may stomp their foot a couple times, mostly to try and provoke you into moving what they're unsure of, and or letting other deer around them know. But at this point, after the first 3 minutes of one deer being alert, the rest are all alert within QE, sixth sense. So that's what the hunt, and that's what makes the Sambar really difficult, is you've got to sort of bloody try and be a step ahead of them to a degree. Walking them up from behind is very difficult. I think in the last 20 years we've been very lucky, blokes like me particularly. I can just walk around and soon enough, having a bit of knowledge of where the deers might be, I'll run into them. But like, let's talk 20 years ago, maybe even more, 40 years ago, all this info wasn't out there, the deer weren't out there, so that's why they became so notoriously difficult to hunt from the get-go. Because people walking up behind them, run into them, trying to get a shot on them. Now we are glassing, we're sit and wait ambushing more often. There's more chance the deer may come in. We've got trail cameras letting us know that the deer's actively on this wallow. All that sort of jazz. But then we get into where the thermal comes into it and how that takes away the fair chase. And see, the thermal and the fair chase, what sort of fucks that up here is the fact that the thermal is heat seeker. It picks up on the heat, right? Now, if you haven't used thermals, you won't understand. If you've looked through a thermal for long enough or dabbled with them, any sort of thermal, it's phenomenal shit. I can't stress that enough. Like, thermal imaging is phenomenal shit. And watching it on a YouTube video, that's one thing, but to be actually there in the pitch black, looking through this freaking thing and just seeing the detail of the fox, rabbit, deer, whatever the fuck it is, from sometimes with this night stuff, you're so close. You know exactly what it is. You see the bloody fucking nipples on it. But then with these really good thermals, mate, you can see 2 kilometres. You can pick up freaking deer, deer-sized animals, 2 kilometres. Cattle, I'd say more even. They're phenomenal. Like, it's hard to explain if you haven't seen through them, right? But then, say we haven't looked through them before, and we're sort of just saying, oh, someone will get bloody shot. It's like a spotlight. Someone will get fucking shot. You don't know what's around. But like the thermal you do, it's fucking full on. So then even if you go to basic entry level thermals, the picture is not quite as detailed as, say, the higher end pulsars, but you're still quite aware because it's only heat. It might get a little bit pixelated, but then you're sort of at the limit of that device. And that's where the more money comes into it to get a clearer picture. But just say even the shitter ones, if you're going to be night shooting animals in a cullen matter, or even use them as daytime, you're going to want to be pretty close to these things anyway. We're not allowed to use, or people aren't allowed to use the thermal scope. So that means in the day, you can only find them scanning, then pick up on it. So that's what it does. It takes 4 hours work and puts it into about 10 or 15, and that's no bullshit. You can give me a kilometre long face, kilometre high, fucking 54 gullies in it, and within 15 to 20 minutes, be able to pretty much pick up some deer to then focus on, which in what would take potentially like 4 hours of sitting there glassing, waiting for them to get up midday or feed or bed up into there or descend back down type thing. It takes the time out of it, which is like everyone wants everything real quick. and wants to happen now, but I think the hunt and the way the Sambar work, it is about cutting your teeth, finding the sign, looking at poo, looking at deer rubs, getting into new areas, finding areas. These devices take that all away from that pretty quickly. It's not really much use whinging about it. I understand that. Like, it is what it is. The rules, the regs are in. You use your fucking thermal all day if you want. Still not use them at night time until you're on private lands. Okay. I don't think, just in regards to the danger of thermals, I actually don't believe it is too big of a danger. As I was saying, even with a budget end thermal device, you can still know what's what. Everything has a pretty distinctive shape, and it's only picking up the heat signatures. So that's wherever there's fur and skin. I find it not amusing, but I shouldn't say amusing, but I find it interesting that people will, in defence against the bloody thermals, say, oh, someone may get shot, someone will be bent over taking a shit and they'll get shot. Like, I just don't see that, because the shape of that person down there having a shit, whether it's just you've seen a bit of it or whatever, we're not shooting at just the shape or a fucking bit of a heat signal or a bit of brown in the bush these days. You know, we're not shooting at bits of shit. We're waiting to see the fucker's horns, how many legs it's got, which way is it facing, just looking at me, what's going on, how big is it, then we're shooting them. Anyone that's just pointing and shooting through the bush is a fucking idiot and shouldn't have a gun license to start with, but is what it is. Spotlights, I get that. This eye shine. The thermal has nothing to do with eye shine. Infrared, you'll get eye shine, but you're also seeing nighttime, full nighttime stuff. So infrared's just as safe as a thermal device, in my opinion on that. That's enough of the safety side of it. Basically now though, what it means with the thermal being out in the public lands, I think it's well and truly golden era done, period. I wrote about this back in 2020-ish, 2021, just after the fires, in one of the last 88GM mags. And if you go back and read all that, it's pretty much come to fruition in regards to helicopters, just bulk killing for the last 5 years, culling from government agencies. Then you've got Tom, Dick and Harry's who have been using the thermals for quite a while now in the high country. So let's talk about high country. That's where these stags are. We all know that, okay? They're up in the tops per se. They're in the alpine country, the remote country. But what's happening is the helicopter has able to go through there enough times now, I'm talking a dozen times, and pick off deer, whether they're from down the gullies or up and living on the tops. I think you'd be struggling to find many deer up on the Howard right now. We did walk through there earlier this year and saw, I got honked, saw a couple of deers and a little bit of sign, but like even through that whole Razor Viking wilderness, it was pretty quietish. They definitely weren't in mobs. But say we're up on the Howards or the Hothams or wherever, what's going to start happening now is the size of the deers, I believe, is going to just dramatically decline. The age of the deers should decline. Anything with a decent set of antlers, which is 3, 4 years old, 5 years old, will probably start getting targeted more often because of the stag, the antler. Hinds may get a bit of attention just because the stags aren't there as much, so it's like, well, we need meat, let's get the hind. But I think the big stags are going to just go deep bush and get away from it pretty quickly, what hasn't been cleaned up already. And the drum with the chopper was not being selective, so it's hard to say what is really out there in terms of age. Like, for all we know, there could have been a whole bunch of fairly mature hinds shot that had actually dropped calves and those calves might have been just old enough or were hiding or went to ground, and now they're out there. So they're like going to be a couple of years away from breeding. And then what stags have been cleaned up off the tops, because they're doing it the right time of year. They're not just doing it midwinter when there's fucking snow out there. They're up there doing it when it's the right time of year. So what's this taking these breeding stags away that might come from the house, and would they dropping in King area or back in the Gatta or over in the other sides? They'll travel big miles to do all this breeding, so it'll just be interesting to see what the breeding, how quickly they do come back once they stop getting peppered by the government particularly. And then regarding recreational hunters, it's going to be interesting just to see what areas are going to get pumped out per se. And we're even looking at places like the Morocco now, where thermals have been quite active for quite a while, and just stag hunting in general. There's a lot of middle-aged, middle-sized stags being killed there in the last 3 or 4 years. And from most reports, there's a few deer kicking around in there, but to find these stags, they are actually missing, gone. They're not just hiding around the other side of these hills, because you've got thermals and you're just seeing this now over 4 or 5 days. You might see 30, 40 deer, but there's fuck all stags in that, and you know that. And that will not change for 10 years. It's going to need 10 years of chill for it to get renowned, anything like it was renowned. Wonnegutter's fucked, it'll be full of hinds, that'll be about it. How it's fucked. You're going to get deer, probably decent deer, away from the hounds and in the jungle-ish bush, potentially regrowth. Coming up 5 years now. Another couple of years in the regrowth areas, once the bush sort of chills out a little bit more, and then you can hunt it and the hounds stay out of it, then there should be enough decent-sized deer out around there. But everything else, yes, you'll be able to hunt deer, but they're just going to be fucking young hinds and pretty much juvenile stags for the most parts, I would imagine. The pressure's just too high on them these days. But anyway, look, I did come here to talk about this 303. We got on a bit of a wayward there in regards to just the thermal stuff, but I think that was going to be expected. I would assume a lot of you guys probably expected a fair bit of shit from me in the last couple of weeks in regards to the thermal stuff, but look, I'm a bit of a realist, so I understand it's a little bit inevitable. I just thought GMA and maybe some of the deer mobs would have had a bit more balls about them and not just done a little pussy online survey about it, and more really argued and got to the bottom of where we need to be with thermals. And I would have thought any keen game hunter would have been quite happy with the rules as they were in regards to private land, do what you fucking want. Public land, this is what we got to try and protect, not fuck. Anyway, I'll leave it there.